The lab trembled as Devon's quantum resonator reached critical frequency. Sparks cascaded from the jury-rigged containment field, and the acrid smell of burning circuits filled the cramped space. His hazel eyes narrowed, watching the energy reading spike beyond all theoretical limits. The machine wasn't supposed to do this. None of his calculations had predicted this cascade effect. "Come on," he muttered, calloused hands flying over the controls. His dark hair, already streaked with premature gray from countless late nights, fell across his forehead as he leaned into the console. The resonator's hum shifted to a shriek, and reality itself seemed to buckle. The rift tore open like a wound in space, revealing a dimension of impossible beauty. Floating islands drifted through star-scattered void, connected by bridges of pure light. Devon had only a moment to register the sight before the gravitational pull seized him, yanking him through the breach. He landed hard on crystalline ground, the impact driving air from his lungs. When he rolled to his feet, the rift had vanished, leaving only alien constellations overhead. The island beneath him pulsed with bioluminescent veins, and the air tasted of copper and ozone. "Primitive chaos," a voice dripped with disdain. Devon spun toward the speaker and froze. The creature before him was breathtaking and terrifying in equal measure. She stood tall and lithe, her skin glowing with soft blue radiance that pulsed like a heartbeat. Multifaceted eyes shifted from emerald to violet as they assessed him, and her short, feathery hair shimmered like liquid metal in the starlight. "You're Zainari," Devon said, recognizing the species from theoretical xenobiology texts. The woman's bioluminescence flared brighter, cycling toward gold. "I am Enforcer Ellie," she replied, her chin tilting upward in clear dominance. "And you are an unwelcome disruption in our sacred space. Your reckless experiment has damaged the dimensional barriers." Devon's gaze flicked to her twitching fingers, noting the predatory grace in her stance. Even at rest, she looked ready to strike. "Look, I didn't mean to." "Humans never mean to," Ellie cut him off, moving closer with fluid precision. "Yet your chaos follows you everywhere. The artifact's harmony has been disturbed because of your presence." A rumble shook the island, and cracks spiderwebbed across the ground near Devon's feet. He stumbled backward, his lean frame tensing as the ledge crumbled beneath him. Without thinking, he grabbed a loose crystal formation, swinging himself to safety just as the section collapsed into the void below. Ellie's eyes widened, their color shifting to surprised amber. "Quick reflexes," she admitted grudgingly. Devon brushed dust from his hands, his relaxed posture returning despite the near-death experience. "Physics may be different here, but falling still kills you." He met her gaze steadily. "Where's this artifact you mentioned?" Her bioluminescence dimmed slightly, uncertainty flickering across her features. "The Harmony Core stabilizes reality across multiple dimensions. If it fails because of the disruption you caused..." "Then both our realities collapse," Devon finished, his voice calm but urgent. "Show me!" Ellie studied him, her predatory stance softening almost imperceptibly. Something in his hazel eyes, determination without arrogance, fear tempered by resolve, made her reconsider. "Very well, human, but know that if you endanger the core further, I will end you myself." As she turned to lead him across the glowing bridges, Devon caught himself watching the fluid movement of her luminous form. The way her skin pulsed with each heartbeat was hypnotic, alien beauty unlike anything he'd ever seen. When she glanced back and caught him staring, her glow flared golden for just an instant before settling back to cool blue. "Keep up," she commanded, but her voice had lost some of its earlier bite. The temple housing the artifact loomed ahead, its spires twisted into impossible geometries that hurt to look at directly. As they approached, Devon felt the weight of her gaze on him, assessing, calculating. He didn't yet know what forces had brought them together, but he could sense that their meeting would change everything. Behind them, unseen in the shadows, predators began to stir. The chain of floating islands stretched before them like stepping stones across an ocean of stars. Each landmass defied Earth physics, rotating slowly on its axis while maintaining perfect alignment with its neighbors. Devon paused at the first bridge, a span of crystallized light that barely looked solid enough to support their weight. "The gravity shifts between islands," Ellie warned, her voice sharp with authority, Follow my path exactly, or you'll fall into the void. She stepped onto the bridge with practiced ease, her lithe form adapting instantly as the gravitational field inverted. What had been down became sideways, then up again, forcing Devon to recalibrate his balance with each step. His steady, grounded presence contrasted sharply with her predatory grace as they navigated the shifting forces. "This is impossible," Devon muttered, grabbing the bridge's edge as another gravity wave hit. "The energy requirements alone should—" "Your primitive physics don't apply here," Ellie cut him off, though she slowed her pace slightly. "The Zenari mastered dimensional engineering millennia ago." Devon's hazel eyes glinted with challenge. "Maybe, but I'm betting the underlying quantum mechanics are universal." He pulled a bent piece of metal from his pocket, debris from his destroyed lab equipment, and began reshaping it with his calloused hands. "Mind if I test a theory?" Ellie's multifaceted eyes narrowed, cycling from green to violet. "What are you doing?" "Making a compass." Devon twisted the metal into a rough spiral, then held it up. The makeshift device began to vibrate, pointing toward stable gravitational fields. "Quantum resonance detector. Should help us predict the shifts." Despite herself, Ellie found her gaze drawn to his hands as he worked. The calluses spoke of countless hours building, fixing, creating, so different from the Zenari's crystalline technology. When their eyes met across the bridge, she felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. "Impossible," she whispered, but her tone held wonder rather than dismissal. They reached the second island as a temporal distortion rippled through the space around them. Reality stuttered, and suddenly Devon and Ellie were pressed against each other in what had been a wide corridor, now compressed to barely 3 feet across. Her luminous skin was warm against his chest, and he could feel her rapid heartbeat through the thin barrier of her clothing. "Don't move," she breathed, her voice husky with sudden awareness. "The distortion is unstable." Devon's makeshift detector spun wildly in his hand, its readings chaotic, but he noticed a pattern in the quantum fluctuations, a rhythm that matched the pulse of her bioluminescence. "Your body," he said softly, his breath stirring her metallic hair, "it's generating a resonance field." Ellie's skin flared golden, and she turned her face away to hide the reaction. "Zenari physiology is naturally attuned to dimensional energy. Then we can use that." Devon adjusted his device, syncing it to her bioluminescent pulse. The temporal field began to stabilize, reality expanding back to normal proportions. As the space around them returned, neither moved away immediately. "How did you know to do that?" Ellie demanded, though her voice lacked its earlier hostility. Devon's lips curved in a faint smile. "Call it intuition, or maybe humans are better at adapting than you think." Her bioluminescence flickered, uncertainty replacing arrogance. As they continued toward the temple, visible now on the largest floating island, Ellie found herself stealing glances at the strange human beside her. His steady confidence in the face of impossible circumstances was beginning to crack through her rigid prejudices. "The temple holds many dangers," she warned as they approached the final bridge. "Creatures from the void are drawn to the artifact's energy." "Then we'd better stick together," Devon replied simply, his device still humming in harmony with her glowing skin. Ellie's fingers twitched, as if she wanted to reach for his hand, but she caught herself. Instead, she quickened her pace, leading them toward whatever waited in the temple's twisted spires. Behind them, shadows began to detach themselves from the void between islands, following their luminous trail. The temple's entrance yawned before them, carved from living crystal that pulsed with the same rhythm as Ellie's skin. Ancient symbols spiraled up the doorway, their meaning lost to Devon but somehow familiar, as if quantum mechanics itself had been written in stone. As they crossed the threshold, the temperature dropped, and their breath began to mist in the suddenly frigid air. Inside, the corridors stretched impossibly far, defying the temple's external dimensions. Bioluminescent strips along the walls cast shifting patterns of light and shadow, creating a maze that seemed to rearrange itself as they walked. "The artifact chamber is at the temple's heart," Ellie explained, her voice echoing strangely in the vast space. "But first, we must speak with the keeper." They found him in a circular chamber lined with star charts and quantum equations that made Devon's head spin. The elderly Zanari stood nearly 7 feet tall, his weathered skin etched with intricate patterns that pulsed dimly in the crystal light. His silvered hair flowed like a mantle, and his clouded eyes held depths of knowledge that made Devon feel suddenly young. "So," the keeper said, his voice gravely with age, "the artifact has brought us another human. How curious." "Keeper," Ellie began formally, but the old Zainari raised a hand to silence her. "The Harmony Core maintains the barriers between realities," he continued, stroking his chin thoughtfully. "When those barriers weaken, creatures from the void slip through. They hunger for the energy that keeps our dimensions stable." Devon stepped forward, his hazel eyes intense. "The quantum flux readings I detected, they're accelerating. How long do we have before total collapse?" The keeper's glow brightened slightly, impressed despite himself. "Days, perhaps hours, the barriers thin with each passing moment." He gestured to the equations floating in crystalline displays around the chamber. "Our calculations suggest that only a perfect resonance between human intuition and Zanari logic might restore the balance." Ellie's bioluminescence flared skeptically. "Human intuition is chaos." Her words were cut off by a bone-chilling shriek from the temple's depths. The crystalline walls vibrated, and the light strips flickered ominously. Through the doorway burst creatures of living shadow and crystalline teeth, their forms shifting between dimensions as they moved. "Void predators," the keeper breathed, his own glow dimming with fear. Devon didn't hesitate. As the creatures lunged toward Ellie, he threw himself between them, his lean frame absorbing the impact meant for her. Crystalline claws raked across his shoulder, drawing blood, but he held firm, one hand pressed against her back to keep her behind him. "Stay down!" he shouted, pulling his makeshift device from his pocket and adjusting its frequency. The quantum detector began emitting a high-pitched whine that made the shadow creatures writhe in apparent pain. Ellie's eyes widened as she watched this human, this supposedly primitive being, sacrifice his safety for hers without a second thought. Her bioluminescence pulsed erratically, gold and blue cycling rapidly as unfamiliar emotions surged through her. "The resonance chamber," the keeper called out, pointing down a corridor. "If you can reach the artifact—" Another wave of predators poured into the chamber. Devon grabbed Ellie's hand, their fingers intertwining as he pulled her toward the passage. His palm was warm against her luminous skin, calloused but gentle, and the contact sent electric shivers up her arm. They ran through corridors that twisted like a living thing, Devon's device clearing the path, while Ellie's natural agility helped them navigate the temple's shifting geometry. Behind them, the keeper's voice rose in an ancient Zanari battle chant, holding the creatures at bay. "This way," Ellie gasped, leading them down a narrow stair that descended into the temple's heart. In the darkness, their only light came from her glowing skin and the faint pulse of Devon's detector. "Your device," she said as they paused to catch their breath. "How did you know it would work?" Devon looked at her in the soft blue radiance of her bioluminescence, noting how her chest rose and fell with exertion, how her multifaceted eyes held a vulnerability she rarely showed. "Sometimes you have to trust that the universe has patterns, even when you can't see them all." His thumb brushed across her knuckles where their hands remained joined, and Ellie's breath hitched. For a moment, the danger around them faded, leaving only the warmth of his touch and the steady strength in his gaze. Then footsteps echoed from above, and they knew the predators had broken through. The descending staircase opened into a vast chamber where floating platforms orbited a central dais. On that dais sat the artifact, a sphere of impossible beauty that seemed to contain entire galaxies within its surface. But between them and their goal stood a figure Ellie knew all too well. "Keth," she breathed, her bioluminescence cycling toward angry gold. The rival enforcer stood with predatory confidence, his own luminous skin blazing crimson with righteous fury, his silver eyes fixed on Devon with undisguised hatred, and his muscular frame radiated barely contained violence. "You brought a human to the sacred chamber," Keth snarled, his voice cutting through the artifact's harmonic hum. "Have you lost all sense of duty, Ellie?" "The barriers are failing," Devon said calmly, stepping slightly in front of Ellie despite the obvious danger. "We need to work together." "Silence!" Keth's glow flared brighter, and he moved with lightning speed, a crystalline blade materializing in his hand. Humans are chaos incarnate. Your very presence here proves it. The blade whistled through the air where Devon had been standing, but the human's reflexes were faster than Keth expected. Rolling aside, Devon pulled another piece of salvaged equipment from his pocket, a small device he'd been working on during their journey. "Devon, no!" Ellie cried, but he was already activating the improvised mechanism. A pulse of energy erupted from the device, interfering with the chamber's quantum field. The floating platforms shuddered to a halt, their orbital patterns disrupted, while the artifact's glow dimmed ominously. Keth stumbled as the field shift affected his balance, his blade clattering across the crystal floor. "What have you done?" he roared. "Leveled the playing field," Devon replied, his hazel eyes steady despite the danger. "Your technology relies on dimensional energy. Mine doesn't." Ellie stared at him in amazement, her prejudices crumbling like poorly constructed barriers. This human had just disrupted ancient Zenari technology with salvaged parts and intuitive understanding. The implications sent her mind reeling. "Impossible," Keth breathed, his crimson glow flickering with uncertainty. "That's what she said, too." Devon nodded toward Ellie, whose own bioluminescence had begun pulsing in sync with his device. "But maybe impossible is just another word for we haven't figured it out yet." During their exchange, Devon and Ellie had unconsciously moved closer together. When another pack of void predators burst into the chamber, drawn by the artifact's disrupted harmony, they moved as one. His analytical mind processed the creature's attack patterns, while her combat training guided their defense. "Behind you," Ellie called, her lithe form spinning to deflect crystalline claws. Her fingers brushed Devon's shoulder as she moved, and the brief contact made her skin flare with unexpected warmth. Devon's makeshift weapon whined as he adjusted its frequency, the sound making the shadow creatures recoil. But Keth had recovered his blade and was advancing again, his eyes fixed on Devon with murderous intent. "You've destroyed everything," the rival enforcer snarled. "The artifact's harmony is shattered because of your interference." "No," Devon said quietly, his gaze never leaving Keth's face. "It's shattered because you're fighting the solution instead of embracing it." He held up his device, showing how its quantum signature was gradually synchronizing with the artifact's weakened pulse. The barrier between realities isn't supposed to be rigid. It needs to breathe, to adapt. That's what humans do. We adapt. Ellie's breath caught as understanding dawned. Devon wasn't destroying the artifact's harmony. He was teaching it to evolve. Her skin began glowing brighter, matching the rhythm of his device, and she felt a connection forming between them that transcended species. "You're working together," Keth whispered, his voice hollow with disbelief. "A human and a Zinari in perfect resonance. It can't be." But it was happening. As Devon's device synchronized with Ellie's bioluminescence, the artifact began to pulse with renewed strength. The void predators shrieked and retreated into the shadows, unable to withstand the harmonized energy. Keth raised his blade one final time, but hesitated as he saw the artifact's response. For the first time in millennia, it was changing, adapting, growing stronger through cooperation rather than rigid control. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the chamber, more enforcers drawn by the disturbance, but whether they came as allies or enemies remained to be seen. As the harmonized energy filled the chamber, the artifact began to change. Its surface rippled like liquid starlight, and voices seemed to whisper from within its depths. Devon stepped closer, his modified device resonating with increasing intensity, while Ellie's bioluminescence pulsed in perfect rhythm beside him. "It's alive," Devon breathed, his analytical mind struggling to process what he was seeing. "The artifact isn't just a machine, it's sentient." The sphere pulsed once, twice, and suddenly the chamber filled with images, scenes from across dimensions, moments of crisis and triumph, love and loss. Devon saw his own Earth, but also countless other realities where different choices had led to different outcomes. "We are the harmony," a voice spoke directly into their minds, neither male nor female, but somehow encompassing both. "We maintain the balance between what is and what might be." Ellie's eyes widened. their multifaceted surfaces reflecting the swirling energies around them. The legend spoke of the artifact's consciousness, but I never believed. You have brought chaos and order together, the Harmony continued, its attention focusing on Devon and Ellie. Human intuition and Zenari logic, this convergence was not accidental. Keth, still gripping his blade but no longer advancing, spoke in a hollow voice. You're saying you orchestrated this? The rift, the humans' arrival? We test, the Harmony replied simply. Reality requires both stability and change. The barriers between dimensions were becoming too rigid, too absolute. They needed to learn flexibility. Devon felt a chill of understanding. You've been manipulating events, bringing us together to see if we could work in harmony. And if we had failed? Ellie asked, her voice trembling slightly. The artifact's glow dimmed ominously. Then both realities would have crystallized into static perfection, becoming beautiful but lifeless monuments to order without growth. The chamber shuddered, and through the walls came the sound of reality itself beginning to fracture. Cracks appeared in the crystal surfaces, spreading like spider webs as dimensional pressure built to critical levels. The test is not complete, the Harmony warned. The barriers still weaken. To repair them, one must remain connected to us permanently, becoming a bridge between realities. The choice is yours. Ellie's bioluminescence flickered with fear, her predatory grace faltering as she processed the implications. You're asking one of us to sacrifice our freedom, to become part of the artifact. I'll do it, Devon said immediately, stepping toward the pulsing sphere. No! Ellie's hand shot out, gripping his wrist with desperate strength. Her touch sent electricity up his arm, and her eyes were wide with an emotion she'd never allowed herself to show. I won't let you. Ellie, Devon said softly, turning to face her fully. In the artifact's swirling light, her luminous beauty took his breath away. The proud enforcer was gone, replaced by a woman whose carefully constructed barriers were crumbling. Someone has to. Then it should be me, she interrupted, her voice breaking. This is my duty, my responsibility. Devon's free hand rose to cup her cheek, his calloused palm gentle against her glowing skin. Your duty is to protect your people, not to sacrifice yourself for them. Let me do this. For a moment, they stood frozen in the chaos, gazing into each other's eyes while reality fractured around them. The connection between them had grown beyond mere cooperation. It was need, desire, a bond that neither fully understood, but both felt in their bones. There is another way, the Harmony whispered, its voice tinged with what might have been amusement. If the connection between you is strong enough, if the resonance is perfect, both can remain free while maintaining the bridge. What do you mean? Devon asked, though he kept his gaze locked on Ellie's face. Touch the artifact together. Let your combined energies flow through us. If your harmony is true, the barriers will repair themselves and adapt to include both human chaos and Zenari order. Ellie's breath hitched as understanding dawned. They would have to trust each other completely, opening their minds and hearts without reservation. For a Zenari trained to maintain emotional control, it was terrifying. Together, she whispered. Devon's thumb brushed across her luminous cheekbone, and she saw no fear in his steady hazel eyes, only determination and something deeper, something that made her chest tight with possibility. Together, he confirmed. Hand in hand, they approached the artifact, while behind them Keth watched in stunned silence, and reality continued its inexorable march toward chaos. The moment their joined hands touched the artifact's surface, reality exploded into fractal possibilities. Devon and Ellie found themselves scattered across multiple timelines simultaneously. Their consciousness split, but somehow still connected by the bridge of their intertwined fingers. In one timeline, Devon watched himself fail to create the quantum rift, remaining trapped on Earth while dimensional barriers collapsed elsewhere. In another, Ellie stood alone in the temple as void predators consumed everything she'd sworn to protect. Each possibility played out in vivid detail, showing them the countless ways their meeting could have gone wrong. Stay with me. Devon's voice reached her across the temporal chaos, though she could barely see him through the swirling fragments of alternate realities. Focus on my voice. Ellie's training as an enforcer helped her maintain some semblance of control, But the sheer scope of the temporal displacement was overwhelming. In one fragment, she was pursuing him through the floating islands as an enemy. In another, they'd never met at all, and both their realities crumbled into void. "I can see the quantum pathways," Devon called out, his analytical mind adapting to the multidimensional data streaming through their connection. "The artifact is showing us every possibility, but we need to choose which one becomes real." Through the chaos, Ellie glimpsed a timeline where their initial meeting had been different, where she'd welcomed him instead of dismissing his worth. "There," she gasped, trying to point though her arm seemed to exist in 17 different positions simultaneously. "That path, we're working together from the beginning." "No," Devon said firmly, his presence steadying her even across temporal dimensions. "This timeline, right here, right now. We earned this harmony through conflict and growth. That makes it stronger." A pack of void predators phased through the temporal boundaries, their crystalline forms adapted to hunt across multiple realities. Devon's makeshift detector, somehow still clutched in his free hand, began whining at frequencies that existed in several dimensions at once. "They're trying to prevent us from stabilizing the timeline," Ellie realized, her combat instincts kicking in even while her consciousness was scattered. "If they can keep us fractured, then the barriers stay broken," Devon finished. "We need to synchronize our actions across all realities." It was an impossible task by any conventional measure, but Devon had stopped believing in impossible. His human intuition, unbound by rigid logic, began finding patterns in the chaos. Meanwhile, Ellie's training allowed her to translate those patterns into precise action. In Timeline 7, she deflected a predator's claws. In Timeline 12, Devon's device disrupted their phase shifting. In Timeline 23, they moved back to back, perfectly coordinated despite existing in separate dimensional pockets. "I can feel your heartbeat," Ellie whispered across the fractal space, wonder in her voice. "In every timeline, in every possibility, it's the same rhythm." Devon's grip tightened on her luminous hand. "Then let's use that. Let our heartbeats be the anchor." They began to breathe in unison, their synchronized pulses creating a resonance that rippled across all timelines. Where their combined rhythm touched, the fractured realities began to coalesce, possibility narrowing toward a single stable outcome. The void predators shrieked as their multidimensional hunting ground collapsed around them, but they weren't finished. In a desperate gambit, they began merging their forms, creating a single massive entity that existed partially in their timeline and partially in the void itself. "Devon," Ellie breathed, her bioluminescence flaring across 17 different versions of herself, "I need you to trust me completely." "Always," he replied without hesitation, and she felt her heart skip in every timeline where it existed. Drawing on both her combat training and her growing understanding of his human adaptability, Ellie guided their joined consciousness toward the convergence point where all realities would become one. It required perfect trust, perfect harmony, and perfect love, though neither of them had yet named what was growing between them. As the timelines collapsed into a single strand, Devon and Ellie found themselves back in the artifact chamber, still connected but whole. The void predator materialized before them, massive and terrible, but they faced it together, their combined energies creating a harmony that the creature couldn't withstand. "Now," they said in unison, and their resonance shattered the predator into fragments of dissipating shadow. But their triumph was short-lived. Through the chamber entrance came Keth and a squad of Xynari enforcers, their crystalline weapons trained on Devon. "Step away from the artifact, human," Keth commanded. "Your contamination ends here." Keth's squad spread out around the chamber, their weapons humming with deadly energy. Each enforcer's bioluminescence blazed with righteous fury, casting harsh shadows across the crystal walls. But Devon noticed something in their formation. They were afraid, uncertain, following orders they didn't fully understand. "You saw what happened," Devon said calmly, not moving from Ellie's side. "The artifact responded to our cooperation. The barriers are stabilizing." "Lies," Keth snarled, though his crimson glow flickered with doubt. "Human chaos cannot create order. It's impossible." "There's that word again," Devon murmured. And despite the danger, Ellie's lips curved slightly at his wry humor. The lead enforcer, a stern female whose skin pulsed with deep purple light, stepped forward. The readings from the temple suggest the artifact has been altered. Its harmony is different. Evolution, Ellie said, finding her voice. Her chin lifted in the proud gesture Devon had come to recognize, but now she stood beside him rather than above him. The harmony taught us that the barriers need flexibility, not rigid control. Keth's blade materialized in his hand, its edge crackling with dimensional energy. You've been contaminated by prolonged exposure to human irrationality. Stand aside, and we'll end this contamination quickly. That was the moment Devon realized Keth's true plan. The rival enforcer had been manipulating events from the beginning, feeding the squad false information, positioning them to believe Devon was a threat that needed elimination. But more than that, Keth wanted Ellie to watch Devon die, to prove that trust in humans led only to loss. "You knew," Devon said, understanding dawning in his hazel eyes. "You knew about the artifact's sentience, about the test. You've been trying to ensure we failed." Keth's glow intensified, his muscular frame coiled for attack. "The old ways are pure. This evolution you speak of is corruption, weakness. Better that both realities die in perfect order than live in chaotic harmony." "You're insane," Ellie breathed, her bioluminescence cycling rapidly between gold and blue as emotions warred within her. "I'm pure," Keth corrected, raising his blade, "and purity demands sacrifice." He lunged at Devon with inhuman speed, but the human was no longer the disoriented scientist who'd stumbled through the rift. Days of navigating impossible physics and deadly predators had honed his reflexes to razor sharpness. He rolled aside, pulling Ellie with him, as the blade carved through the space they'd occupied. "The platforms," Devon whispered urgently, nodding toward the floating stones that orbited the artifact. "If we can reach the central dais, the artifact will protect us," Ellie finished, understanding his plan immediately. They moved together, Devon's steady presence grounding her, while her predatory grace guided their path. Behind them, Keth roared orders to his squad, but several enforcers hesitated, their weapons lowering as they witnessed the perfect coordination between human and Zenari. "Sir," the purple-glowing enforcer called out, "they're not fighting us. They're trying to reach the artifact to corrupt it further," Keth snapped, his rationality crumbling under fanatic fury. "Destroy them both." Some of the squad obeyed, their energy weapons sending deadly beams across the chamber. But others held back, confused by conflicting orders and the evidence of their own eyes. Devon and Ellie's harmony was creating visible stabilization in the artifact's field. The chamber itself was becoming more solid, more real. Devon's modified device whined as he adjusted its frequency, creating a shield of quantum interference that deflected the energy beams. But the effort was draining, and he stumbled as they reached the first floating platform. Ellie caught him, her luminous hand warm against his chest. "Devon?" "I'm okay," he assured her, though his face was pale with exhaustion. "Just need to." Keth appeared on the platform above them, having used his natural Zinari agility to leap the gaps. His blade swept down in a killing arc, but Ellie was already moving, her combat training taking over. She intercepted the blow with her forearm guards, the crystalline edges scraping sparks from the metal. "You were my squad leader," she said, her voice heavy with betrayal. "I trusted you." "And I failed you by allowing that trust to make you weak," Keth replied, pressing his advantage. "Watch as your human proves his worthlessness." But Devon wasn't cowering behind Ellie. Instead, he was working frantically on his device, reconfiguring its quantum matrix while she held Keth at bay. The makeshift mechanism began to resonate with the artifact's core frequency, creating a feedback loop that made the entire chamber tremble. "What are you doing?" Keth demanded, momentarily backing away from the rising harmonic whine. "Something impossible," Devon replied with a tight smile. "I'm turning your own technology against you." The quantum field around the artifact began to pulse in rhythm with his device, and suddenly every piece of Zinari technology in the chamber, weapons, armor, life support systems, began to malfunction. The rigid crystalline matrices that powered their civilization couldn't adapt to the chaotic harmonics Devon was generating. Keth's blade flickered and died, his armor lost its protective glow, and his squad's weapons powered down completely. Only Ellie seemed unaffected, her natural bioluminescence continuing to pulse in sync with Devon's creation. "Impossible," Keth whispered, echoing the word that had become Devon's signature challenge. "There's that word again," Devon and Ellie said together, their voices blending in perfect harmony. With Keth's technology disabled, the fanatic enforcer fell back on raw physical prowess, lunging at Devon with crystalline claws extended. But the squad leader's failure had shattered his authority, and several of his followers were already lowering their useless weapons, their bioluminescence shifting from aggressive red to uncertain yellow. "Sir, the quantum field is stabilizing," the purple glowing enforcer reported, her voice filled with wonder. "The barriers between realities are strengthening, not weakening." "Lies," Keth roared, but his voice cracked with desperation. "Human chaos cannot create order." Devon caught Keth's wrist as the claws descended, his lean strength surprising the larger Zainari. "You keep saying that word, chaos, but you don't understand what it really means." His hazel eyes were calm, even as he struggled against Keth's superior strength. "Chaos isn't destruction, it's possibility." Ellie moved to help, but the artifact pulsed suddenly, its voice filling their minds with urgent communication. "The test is not complete. One final challenge remains." The chamber walls began to fade, revealing the true heart of the artifact, a space that existed between dimensions, where the laws of physics became suggestions rather than rules. Here the Harmony's consciousness was fully manifest, a swirling galaxy of thought and intention that encompassed realities beyond counting. "Choose," the Harmony commanded, its voice resonating through every molecule of their being. "One of you must remain connected to us permanently, becoming a bridge between realities. The choice is yours." Connected to us permanently, becoming a bridge between realities. The choice is yours. Devon's gaze, though fixed on Keth, remained unwavering. "Chaos isn't destruction, it's possibility." He held Keth's wrist, his lean strength surprising the larger Zainari, and in that moment the Harmony's voice echoed in their minds, cutting through the tension. "The test is not complete. One final challenge remains." The chamber walls began to fade, revealing the true heart of the artifact, a space that existed between dimensions, where the laws of physics became suggestions rather than rules. Here the Harmony's consciousness was fully manifest, a swirling galaxy of thought and intention that encompassed realities beyond counting. "Choose," the Harmony commanded, its voice resonating through every molecule of their being. "One of you must remain connected to us permanently, becoming a bridge between realities. The choice is yours." Ellie's bioluminescence flickered with fear, her predatory grace faltering as she processed the implications. "You're asking one of us to sacrifice our freedom, to become part of the artifact." "I'll do it," Devon said immediately, stepping toward the pulsing sphere. "No!" Ellie's hand shot out, gripping his wrist with desperate strength. Her touch sent electricity up his arm, and her eyes were wide with an emotion she'd never allowed herself to show. "I won't let you." "Ellie," Devon said softly, turning to face her fully. In the artifact's swirling light, her luminous beauty took his breath away. The proud enforcer was gone, replaced by a woman whose carefully constructed barriers were crumbling. "Someone has to." "Then it should be me," she interrupted, her voice breaking. "This is my duty, my responsibility." Devon's free hand rose to cup her cheek, his calloused palm gentle against her glowing skin. "Your duty is to protect your people, not to sacrifice yourself for them. Let me do this." For a moment, they stood frozen in the chaos, gazing into each other's eyes, while reality fractured around them. The connection between them had grown beyond mere cooperation. It was need, desire, a bond that neither fully understood, but both felt in their bones. "There is another way," the Harmony whispered, its voice tinged with what might have been amusement. "If the connection between you is strong enough, if the resonance is perfect, both can remain free while maintaining the bridge." "What do you mean?" Devon asked, though he kept his gaze locked on Ellie's face. "Touch the artifact together. Let your combined energies flow through us. If your harmony is true, the barriers will repair themselves and adapt to include both human chaos and Zainari order." Ellie's breath hitched as understanding dawned. They would have to trust each other completely, opening their minds and hearts without reservation. For a Zinari trained to maintain emotional control, it was terrifying. "Together," she whispered. Devon's thumb brushed across her luminous cheekbone, and she saw no fear in his steady hazel eyes, only determination and something deeper, something that made her chest tight with possibility. "Together," he confirmed. Hand in hand, they approached the artifact, while behind them Keth watched in stunned silence and reality continued its inexorable march toward chaos. As their joined hands made contact with the artifact's swirling surface, a wave of pure energy surged through them, not painful, but intensely vibrant, as if every atom in their bodies had suddenly awakened. The chamber, which had been fracturing, now began to knit itself back together, not rigidly, but with a new, fluid strength. The cracks in the crystal walls sealed, not disappearing, but transforming into shimmering veins of light that pulsed in harmony with the artifact. Devon felt his consciousness expand, encompassing not just the chamber, but the floating islands, the void, and then, impossibly, vast stretches of the cosmos. He saw galaxies bloom and fade, stars ignite and collapse, all held in a delicate balance by forces he was only just beginning to comprehend. His mind, accustomed to the logical progression of Earth physics, now embraced paradox and simultaneity. He understood with a clarity that transcended language that chaos was not the enemy of order, but its essential partner, the wellspring of innovation, the catalyst for growth. Beside him, Ellie gasped, her own Zinari senses overwhelmed by the influx of data. Her bioluminescence flared, cycling through every color imaginable, reflecting the myriad dimensions now accessible to her perception. She felt the ancient wisdom of her ancestors, the rigid logic of the Zinari, merge with something entirely new, the boundless adaptability of humanity. Her enforcer training, once focused on control and suppression, now encompassed a profound understanding of interconnectedness. She saw the void predators not as mere monsters, but as manifestations of unchecked entropy, a necessary counterpoint to the harmony's order, now brought into balance. Keth, still stunned, watched as the artifact's light intensified, bathing Devon and Ellie in a radiant glow. The other enforcers, their weapons still useless, stood transfixed. The purple-glowing enforcer, whose name was Lyra, lowered her head in reverence. "The harmony, it accepts them," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. The harmony's voice, now clearer and more resonant, filled their minds. "You have proven worthy, not by choosing sacrifice, but by choosing unity. The bridge is forged." Devon felt a profound sense of peace settle over him, a quiet understanding that this was where he was meant to be. He looked at Ellie, her face illuminated by her own radiant glow, and saw a reflection of that same peace mingled with a newfound joy. Their hands remained clasped, a physical manifestation of the bridge they had become. "What happens now?" Ellie asked, her voice soft, almost hesitant. "The barriers are repaired, but they are no longer absolute," the harmony explained. "They will breathe, adapt, and allow for the natural flow of energy and possibility between realities. Your connection, your perfect resonance, will maintain this new balance." Keth finally stirred, his face a mask of disbelief and dawning horror. "This is an abomination, a perversion of the sacred order." He lunged forward, not with a weapon, but with desperate, flailing hands, as if to tear them apart. But before he could reach them, Lyra and two other enforcers stepped in front of him, blocking his path. "Enough, Keth," Lyra said, her voice firm. "The harmony has spoken. Its will is clear." Keth recoiled, his crimson glow flickering erratically. He looked at his former squad, at the artifact, and finally at Devon and Ellie, standing together, radiating a power he couldn't comprehend. This is not the Zinari way," he muttered, his voice broken. He turned and stumbled away, disappearing into the still-forming corridors of the temple, his rigid beliefs shattered. The harmony's presence began to recede, its immense consciousness settling back into the artifact, but leaving behind a faint, lingering warmth in Devon and Ellie's minds. They felt the connection to the artifact, a constant, gentle hum that resonated with their own heartbeats. It was not a burden, but an extension of themselves, a silent promise of endless possibilities. "So we're living bridges?" Devon quipped, a faint smile playing on his lips. Ellie's multifaceted eyes sparkled with amusement. "It appears so, human." She squeezed his hand. her touch now entirely comfortable, entirely natural. And what does a living bridge do? We learn, Devon replied, his gaze sweeping across the now stable yet still subtly shifting chamber. We explore. We help guide the flow between realities, ensuring that both chaos and order can thrive. The other enforcers, led by Lyra, approached cautiously. "Enforcer Ellie," Lyra began, her tone respectful, "what are your orders?" Ellie looked at Devon, a silent question passing between them. He nodded, a gesture of shared leadership. "Our orders," Ellie stated, her voice clear and strong, "are to understand this new harmony, to protect it, and to ensure that the Zenari people and all realities connected to the harmony can adapt and grow." She paused, then added, "and to begin by studying this human chaos." A playful glint entered her eyes as she looked at Devon. Over the following weeks, the temple became a hub of unprecedented interspecies cooperation. Devon, with his intuitive grasp of quantum mechanics and his knack for improvisation, worked alongside Zenari scientists, deciphering the new, flexible laws of physics that governed the stabilized dimensional barriers. His makeshift quantum detector, now a permanent extension of his hand, hummed with a constant, gentle resonance, a testament to the power of adaptation. Ellie, no longer just an enforcer, became a diplomat and a teacher. She bridged the gap between the Zenari's ancient traditions and the radical new understanding brought by Devon. She explained, with a patience that surprised even herself, how rigid control had nearly led to their destruction, and how embracing the chaos of human intuition was, in fact, the path to true strength. Her bioluminescence, once a reflection of her emotional state, now pulsed with a steady, vibrant blue, signifying her inner balance. News of the human-Zenari harmony spread across the Zenari civilization. Initially, there was skepticism, even fear. But as the dimensional instability ceased, and as the harmony core radiated a new, stronger energy, the Zenari began to accept the profound shift. They saw the void predators retreat, their incursions ceasing as the barriers became both flexible and robust. They witnessed the artifact's renewed vibrancy, a testament to the combined energies of human and Zenari. Keth, though disgraced, was not forgotten. He wandered the outer reaches of the Zenari territories, a solitary figure consumed by his rigid ideology. Some whispered that he was a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of clinging to outdated beliefs. Others believed he might one day return, having finally understood the lesson of the harmony. But for now, his influence was gone, replaced by the unifying vision of Devon and Ellie. Devon and Ellie's bond deepened with each passing day. Their initial connection, forged in crisis, blossomed into something profound and unique. They spent hours together, not just working on the artifact's intricacies, but simply talking, sharing stories of their respective worlds. Devon taught Ellie about Earth's history, its art, its endless capacity for both destruction and creation. Ellie, in turn, showed Devon the beauty of Zenari philosophy, their deep connection to dimensional energies, and the quiet majesty of their crystalline cities. One evening, as they stood on a floating island watching the star-scattered void, Ellie turned to him. Her bioluminescence softened, casting a gentle glow on his face. "Devon," she began, her voice barely a whisper, "the harmony spoke of love, a perfect resonance." Devon's hazel eyes met hers, filled with an emotion he no longer tried to suppress. He reached out, his calloused hand gently cupping her luminous cheek once more. "It's more than just resonance, Ellie," he said, his voice thick with feeling. "It's everything." He leaned in and she stepped closer. Their foreheads touched in quiet understanding, a moment charged with the same energy as the artifact itself. It was a connection that transcended species, dimensions, and even the laws of physics. A union of chaos and order, perfectly balanced, leaving a resonance that would echo through realities for eons to come. The Quantum Covenant was not just a treaty, but a living, breathing promise. Devon and Ellie, the human and the Zenari, became the guardians of this new era. They continued to explore the myriad dimensions, not as conquerors but as guides, fostering connections, resolving conflicts, and teaching other civilizations the profound truth they had discovered, that true strength lay not in rigid control, but in the beautiful, unpredictable dance of harmony and chaos. Their story became a legend, whispered across the stars, a testament to the day a human, with his messy, brilliant chaos, tamed a Zainari's beast, and together they reshaped the very fabric of reality. The rift had opened not to destroy, but to unite, and in their shared purpose, Devon and Ellie found not just a destiny, but a home.